So about a week ago, I finally got around to playing Bendy Ink Machine, and I finished it only yesterday, and I want to give my full opinion on this game, because this is one of those games that is, overly glazed just because it was made in the 2010s. But also because I feel I got a lot better at reviewing games than when I first did it with FNAF 1, because looking back on that video, I did fucking terrible at actually, reviewing the game. Because more on the part that I just never criticized any of the games I reviewed. I always just glazed them and never actually told the problems with the game. And that would cause some misleading to, the people who go and play it because of my video. Even though it got 2 views. So first we're gonna talk about the story of Bendy the Ink Machine, because with most horror indie games like this, you have to talk about the lore first. The story follows us, Henry, who was sent a letter from our old friend Joey to visit the studio. Not just any studio though, but an art studio. Kind of like the ones you'd see in old Disney when they used to actually draw their things and stuff like 3D animation. But when Henry actually arrives at the studio, it seems to be empty. There's no workers, there's no music playing in the background, it's just empty. And he walks around the place trying to find anyone. That's when he stumbles upon the ink machine. The ink machine being the machine that made all the ink for the studio, and it's fucking giant, by the way. It's the size of my house. But eventually, after just walking around for a while, we fix the machine and turn it on, and then we try to go back, but then, boom! That's the villain of the game, Bendy. Bendy is the mascot of the ink and art studio. He's their Mickey Mouse. But there's something twisted about Bendy. He's not Bendy anymore. He's an ink demon! It leads into a chase scene, and we run around the factory trying to find the exit, and when we eventually do, we fall through the floor and discover there's a second, floor, which not even Henry knew about, or us, so it was just really kind of interesting to fall through the floor, and it was unexpected. But after that, we discover an axe, use it to chop some wood, and then it leaves us on a cliffhanger for the next chapter. But yeah, that was a brief explanation of the first chapter, so now we can actually talk about the gameplay and if the chapter was even good, especially since this was the introduction to the series. And from my humble opinion, it's alright. I feel the first chapter of Bendy the Ink Machine kind of suffers from what most indie horror games suffer from, and that's just being a walking simulator. For most of the game, in the first chapter, we kind of just walk around and do crappy puzzles. Most of the actual horror factor just comes from this, cutout of Bendy scaring us, or a board falling from the ceiling. No actual monsters appear until the end. Which usually wouldn't be too bad, except that you're claiming you're a horror game, and we only get scared at the very end, with a very short chase scene. It actually kind of reminds me on how Poppy Playtime did their first chapter, where we meet the character, of course, but in Bendy the Ink Machine, we meet the main character as a cardboard cutout. But over the chapter 1, they kind of slowly reveal the character until eventually we have to face them in the final act, which I guess I can let slide due to it once again being the first chapter. But the problem I have with Poppy Playtime doing that is they killed the character off after we barely knew or got to see him. Until, he came back in chapter 4. But still, it's just bad how they killed him off so quick. But with Bendy the Ink Machine, they don't kill him. Instead, we just get to meet him and run away from him. But I feel the problem is with Bendy the Ink Machine is we get just no time with Bendy. Other than the cardboard cutouts, we never actually get to see Bendy until the very end, leaving it feeling kind of mediocre. Well, I'm not going to stay too long on this subject. I'm just saying it kind of suffers from just barely showing the, once again, main protagonist of the game. Or antagonist, I don't think I said that right. But for what it is, it's okay. It was an okay introduction to the, main character. I feel they both just suffer the same problem, just they did it in different ways. But does the gameplay make up for the boring walking simulator, like the puzzles? No, absolutely not. The only puzzles we really get is activating the machine, which all we had to do is open a box and put batteries in. Or when we actually had to switch it on, where we had to look around for a bunch of little plushies and records, which also is just really boring. Once again, just never beating that allegation of being a walking simulator, because all we do is just walk around and find objects. But, I can't really judge them, because they actually do help the gameplay farther into the chapters, not leaving it with just chapter 1. they kind of just slowly build up with the gameplay, especially adding the battle mechanic after we enter the second floor. So I kind of just feel that Chapter 1 of Bending Ink Machine kind of just suffers from not giving us too much. They could have done so much more, like give us a weapon, maybe have us fight some demons, but instead we kind of just walk around and do puzzles. It's really boring. I can understand why, because it was a small studio at the time. There's not much they could do. They couldn't add guns, they couldn't add a battle mechanic. So the best they could do was just simply make a chase scene and, some puzzles. So honestly, Bending Ink Machine Chapter 1 is a mediocre introduction to the series. Probably like a 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10. In good cases, a 6 out of 10. But come on, you guys know me. I'm not just going to keep hating on this game, because there are some things I like about the first chapter, which I want to talk about. Like the art style. The whole game has this like cartoonish art style, like the whole world was like hand-drawn by a painter. Having this yellow collar with black outlines that like burst out, it's just really cool to look at. It makes you feel like you're a rubber hose character. And that's what makes it unique at the time. It uses this unique art style and idea and actually makes it kind of work in its game. Especially since the only thing I could really think of that is kind of like Bending the Ink Machine back in 2018 was like Cartoon Cat, or I think Cuphead. I'm not sure when that released. Bendy used the art style and made it into a horror game, as Cuphead made it into this 2D platformer. They both used the same art style, but the outcome came out different in both ways. I'm really happy that Joey Drew Studios, the studio that made the game how it is, because they didn't try to copy FNAF like many games did back in that time period. But I'm just really glad that Joey Drew Studios, the studio that made Bending the Ink Machine, actually did what they did with the game instead of just copying FNAF like many other games did. And of course there are some things that are similar to FNAF, and even the creator of Bending Ink Machine, I'm pretty sure, is a fan of FNAF. They once again just didn't really copy too much things from FNAF. So good job on their part, but there is some other things that they did a good job on, like the soundtrack of the game. Oh my god. Of course, I'm not going to glaze it like it's on Undertale's level, but what I mean is, its art style matches its soundtrack. The soundtrack has this, sad violin, cartoonish style. I don't know how to explain it, but once you hear it, it just sounds so scary. I just can't explain it. The best way I can explain the Bending Ink Machine soundtrack is, you know how in FNAF I mentioned that the soundtrack matches the game itself on the way that FNAF uses, the old opera music and Beethoven-type songs, like the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That was a horrible replica of the song, but you get it. But it works on how the characters are all dressed in, that old medieval, clothing, top hats and bow ties, and it really just works, especially since the map and pizzeria around them has this dark feeling that old songs like that give you. Because a lot of the songs back then are, really creepy and mysterious for some reason. They all have this, sad, depressing lullaby type music. So matching that with a game like FNAF, which is cold, dark, and depressing, just works perfectly. So Bending Ink Machine does pretty much the same thing, with them using violins and drums in their music, kind of like how old Rubber Hose cartoons would do. With Rubber Hose cartoons like the ones in the past, every time the character would move or something, there would either be a drum or a violin in the background to mock what they do. It's just so well done on how they did it. And even the character, Bendy himself, even when he turns into the Ink Demon, he still keeps that Rubber Hose cartoonish type style. With his left hand having this big rubber glove, his bow tie. I don't know, they just do such a good job with the art style. They mastered it in this game. But, of course, there's still one more thing I actually hold very valuable to a bunch of games, especially 3D ones like this, and that's the good old chase scenes. Every 3D game nowadays has a chase scene. Some of them succeed and some of them fail in making the chase scene feel scary. Because with a chase scene like this, you have to make and give that dreading feeling that you would have in real life being chased by like a bear or someone else. You have to like recreate that feeling in a game. My personal favorite chase scenes ever would be the Huggy Wuggy chase scene, for it putting you in this cramped space and Huggy just popping out of nowhere, making you have to do twists and turns. Or the Resident Evil chase scene with Mr. X, on the way it oddly just isn't really like chaotic with the chase scene. It's more realistic with him just walking quietly towards you, which is really spooky. Especially with Mr. X being this like 7-foot tall gray dude in like a trench coat. It's just really spooky. So, does Bendy and Ink Machine achieve a good chase scene, especially on their first chapter? My honest opinion, no. Listen, I understand a lot of people like this game, and I understand how it made people's childhoods, and I hate to criticize games like this, because, well, it made my childhood too. If I'm being honest, Bendy Ink Machine didn't do anything too exciting with the chase scene. It didn't do anything different like most games did at the time. There were no closing doors, there was no trying to do a puzzle mid-chase scene. All you did was run, maybe jump once, and then just fall to the second floor. There's literally nothing different about that and like any other chase scene ever. So the best thing I can actually give this chase scene is, well, the beginning of the chase scene. Because at the beginning, it was really unexpected, since the game was usually really calm at the time, and then when we actually get to the boarded up area, we're like, wait, this wasn't boarded up before, what's going on? And you try to peek through to maybe see someone or see if there's like a monster, but instead you get like reached for by him and get jump scared. It kind of scared the shit out of me, honestly. And then the mediocre chase scene begins. So, if I'm being honest, 100%, this is a decent introduction to the game. It's mediocre, as I said before. There's some ups and downs to this, but I can't really give it too much hate, because this was the introduction to the game. This was made by a small indie studio. This was made by just like a little small company with a little budget. So I'm not going to hate on it, of course. And obviously, it's not like it failed. This is now one of the biggest mascot horror games ever, with like 6 games and a movie coming out. So good job on their part, and also good job for like fixing and upgrading their games as the chapters go on. They like increasingly get better. And yeah, it was a fun game. I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't enjoy playing this game for the second time in my life. And I'm really excited to make more reviews and videos about this franchise, especially since I have a lot more games to go through, especially with a new one coming out sometime this year. And a possible Dead by Daylight collab. Oh my god, we're eating good this year. So yeah, my Chapter 2 review will come out, I don't know, one day. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.